Hello, folks. My name is Timothy Adon. Welcome back to another episode of Integrating Wwise into Unreal, Season 2. In this episode, we are going to talk about switches, more specifically, switching footstep types as you walk along different materials. So this is my second time recording this episode. The first one, I was in the process of editing and then discovered that the frames got so bad that it was almost like the video was freezing for like minutes at a time. So now I'm having to re-record it. But this of course means that I can't do it candidly because I've already done everything, and going through and re-deleting everything might actually cause more harm than good. So I'm going to leave that alone, and I'll just walk you through the steps. So switches have a lot of parts in, or rather more specifically footsteps, have a lot of parts in order to make them work. Switches in and of themselves are incredibly easy, but the process for making footsteps work requires like a number of blueprint things that it's actually like really hard for me to remember. So I had to go back and look at some tutorials online in order to remember how that works, because there's a lot of blueprinting stuff that happens there. So we're in Wwise, and the first thing we're going to need is to go over to GameSyncs and create a switch group. So in this case, I created material ground, which then houses these states, which are dirt, forest, gravel, hardwood, and tile. We're not actually going to be using dirt today because I've only got these four. I can't remember what happened with dirt. I think it was just, I think the recordings came out very badly, and so I ended up not using them. So once you have your states put together, we're going to go ahead and import our audio. I imported gravel, hardwood, and leaves. I'm actually going to rename this to forest to break confusion. When you're naming your states, make sure that they're going to be something that you remember. And when we get into Unreal, it's extremely important that you get the names correct. The first time I recorded the video, I messed myself up by calling it forest here and then calling it leaves in Unreal, and it took me several minutes to figure out what I did wrong. So you'll recall last time I split the heel and toe sounds in the tile recordings to make it more varied. I'm not going to do that with gravel, hardwood, and forest. It's mostly just to save time so that I can kind of get you to the meat of the blueprints. You can go ahead and do that if you want to, and I will probably do that in the future once I have time. But for now, just go ahead and leave this. I have my I have 5 different footstep sounds in each of these in a random container, so that each of these will play randomly of the 5 recordings. So once those are all in there, you're going to want to click on the Footsteps Switch container, and then you just want to click and drag your footstep sounds into the appropriate switch group. And then if you want to test that, you've got your, if you have your transport control down here, click on switches, and then you can select from the drop-down menu. So like dirt, oops, come on. There we go. I didn't properly have footsteps selected. So dirt, nothing should play. Forest. Gravel. Hardwood. Tile. Both of those sound very the same. That's because the tile that I recorded isn't actually tile. It's the fakey tile that you put over the hardwood. So once you have that all set, go ahead and save your project, and then go over to sound banks. Oh, and then my layout got all screwy, so my sound bank is now over here. I'm going to fix that later. It's not terribly important, honestly. And then generate your sound banks. Perfect. And then we're going to go ahead and move on over to Unreal. Okay, so we are in Unreal. As a note, and you've probably noticed in my previous episodes, but having the Unreal editor and OBS going at the same time gives me some frame rate issues. And I'm kind of trying to mitigate that a little bit, but you know, if you notice some chunking, that's kind of what it is. So what you're going to need, and what I ended up doing, and beware, there's some brightness over here, right there, from one of the materials I created. So what you're going to need, or what I did anyways, in order to test this, is I created a little room, living room, extremely shiny bathroom, and then a gravel path and a forest right out my front door. And what this is these are just cube objects that I created, and then these are planes that I put on the ground, like just hovering over the plane that came pre-generated with this environment. And so what you'll want to do is first go to Edit, go to Project Settings. Then, once you're in Project Settings, scroll on down to Engine and then Physics. And then from there, we're going to ignore all of this crap. And you're going to go down to Physical Surface. And then you're going to create surface types. That gives you a lot of different surface types you can create, which is very awesome. And you're just going to name as many surface types as you need. In this case, I just need 4: tile, gravel, hardwood, and forest. And then once you're done with that, you don't need to hit save or anything. Just go ahead and X out of Project Settings. And then hit save on your level. So once you're done in Project Settings, you need 2 other things. You need materials to put on the objects that you're applying these to. And then you need physical material objects, or I actually don't know what these are called. But you need the materials that you attach to the objects, and then you need the physical materials that you attach to your materials. That is a little confusing. So the first one that you're going to want to do is go under Physics and create a physical material. That generates these things right here. And these are what the surface types that we created in Project Settings. You just go down here to Physical Properties and select the appropriate surface material that you created. Once that is done, you open up the material, which is what actually shows in the level. That's what it looks like, with the color blueprints and everything that I just kind of toyed around with for a while until I found colors that were appropriate. And then you attach your physical material to this material. I don't know why they both have very similar names. It makes talking about it very difficult. Once you have that created, would you like to apply change? No. You click on the object that you want to apply these to, and you just select the material. So in this case, this plane object right here has the woods material, which has the forest physical material attached to it, which will then be the item used to set the switches. So once you have that all set, now we get to go to the blueprints. So in this case, we are going to the first-person character blueprint. With the first-person character blueprint open... Oh, right, I should really put this in a comment. Let's actually do that. Comment. Footstep Switch. So this is where things are gonna sound very confusing, but I'm gonna explain how this works. We need this to happen on every frame. So on event tick, every frame, we do a line trace by channel, and I'll explain that once I get to these bits, which requires getting the pawn for player 0, index 0. For those of you that don't know, programming almost always starts at programming numbers almost always start at 0, which is why we are player index 0. And then we're going to get that player location, so the current player location, and then subtract, that's the starting point of the line trace, and then subtracting 100 on the z-axis, which is the ending of the line trace. And essentially what a line trace is, in this particular instance, is it is drawing a line from the player to 100 centimeters below the player. Exactly below the player. Until it hits something. If it hits something, so the return value, if there's a return value, if it hits something, it gets, out the hit, the surface type of the thing that it hit. And then we have a variable here for current surface. If the surface we hit is the same as the surface we are currently standing on, or the surface that we have been standing on already, nothing happens. Because true means nothing happens. If those are not the same, then we set the current surface to the surface we are now stepping on. And then we get whatever AK component, in this case, the play footsteps AK component, that is attached to the mesh 2P, so this mesh right here. And then we set the switch for that AK component, so material, ground. And then right over here we have this dark green color is a enumeration, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, enumeration type object, which essentially is like a Unreal's version of a switch type. And we are taking that type, converting it into a text, and sending it over to this so that it'll set the switch in Wwise, set the switch in Wwise, the switch state. And then right here we have a print string that is being used to as a debugger to make sure that we know we're standing on the correct materials. We're going to go ahead and compile. We're going to save. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And we're going to save the level. And then we're going to go ahead and hit play. And hopefully everything is audible. So right here in the upper left, you can see that we're standing on gravel. Oh, there's the very shiny bathroom. Remember, I created these materials myself. Now we're on hardwood. Now we're in the very shiny bathroom. And now we're in the forest. And that is really all there is to it for setting switches, and especially for footsteps. The blueprint part is the most complicated part of this whole equation. Switches themselves are incredibly easy. As you saw, all we need to do to set switches is have a set switch state, or a set switch node, and then you just need to make sure that you name the switch group exactly the same as you have it in Wwise. That's probably another one of the hard parts. And then make sure that the switch state that you are being set to is also named exactly the same. And this is actually where I had issues before, because getting the surface type in project settings, when we were setting up the surface types in project settings, you need to make sure that those surface types are named exactly as they are going to be named in Wwise, so that when this enumeration value is converted into a string and then sent up to this set switch state node, that it will communicate properly. And the first time I was recording this video, I had an issue with that because I named it leaves in Unreal while it was named... No, I'm sorry. I had it named Leaves. Yeah, I had it named Leaves in Unreal, and I had it called Forest in Wise. And so everything was working except for that part, and it threw me off for a little while. I did end up going into how to use the profiler a little bit. In fact, let's try and do that right now. Let's go ahead. This video is going to be pretty short, so let's go into how to use the profiler right now. This is probably going to use up like all of my CPU resources, but this will be a really good thing to show off. So in Wise, you can go to the profiler, and I'm sure you probably know about this, but just in case you don't, the profiler is a way for you to hook up Wise to the instance of the game currently playing, so that you can view in real time all of the things that are being triggered and changed in Wise. And this way you can use it to see like how much CPU is being used just on audio, and as a way to like debug what the heck is going on if something is broken. And I did this a lot yesterday. So this little button right here is how you connect to your projects. And right now it's just the local host. I'm not connecting to anything else. It's just connecting to my desktop. Hit connect. Boom. It is now recording. So we're going to go ahead and shrink this. I can't show you both. Well, actually, I guess I could potentially show you both things at the same time. So now we're going to go in here. Okay. And then you can see over in the right, every single time the action gets triggered, it'll tell you. It will also tell you, if you can see there, hold on, let me walk into here. Right there, you can see like kind of towards the middle. I don't have my mouse. Actually, hold on, let me exit out. Right here, you can see switch to hardwood, which is as soon as I stepped onto the hardwood, it then set the switch state, and then it will continue telling you when the actions have been triggered, and then when the playing starts, when the playing stops, when the delays start, when the delays end, etc., etc. It's a very useful way to go through and figure out what's going on. And we're going to go ahead and stop the capture, which is that button right there, and we're going to go ahead and go back to the designer layout. And that is all I have for this episode. Hopefully this was helpful for you. As I said, switches are pretty easy. The blueprints for doing footsteps can be a little complicated. It's not necessarily intuitive, but it makes sense once you kind of understand the flow. And then for upcoming videos, I am going to be working on changing the gunshot sound, because the gunshot sound is still the default one that's actually being generated in the Unreal Engine. It's not even in Wise. So I will be working on that, and then I also plan on going over states, which honestly, very similar to switches, so that will be combined with another video. RTPCs, and then eventually I'm going to go on to reverbs. But until that point, if you have any questions or anything Wise to Unreal related that you would like me to go over in a future video, please feel free to let me know. I will be happy to change the schedule on how I'm going to be recording these, because, you know, these videos are here to help you. So if there's anything that you want to know about first, I will do my best to segue into that video earlier than the other videos that I was planning on doing. If you have any other questions, comments, or concerns, or things that you need to mention, or things that you would just like to talk about, feel free to let me know in the comments down below, or you can email me at timothyadon@gmail.com. And then if you like these videos and you would like to support me, I will always accept coffees, and my Ko-Fi link will be down in the description below. I survive off of coffees, and they are very handy for my sanity and well-being. Maybe not for my well-being, but they're really good for my sanity. And then you can also do the usual YouTube things of liking, subscribing, and poking the screen and laughing, and all of the other joyous things that happens around YouTube. We'll ignore the not so joyous things. And until next time, I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.